Let's talk about the Chevy Volt. I absolutely love my Chevy Volt. I have a 2016. I bought it used. I bought it in the summer of 2018. The whole point for why I got it was I didn't want to spend ideally no more than 15K. But when I laid eyes on the 2016 Volt, I decided it was fine to stretch a little bit, spend 20K on this car. It was a few years old. I think I got it for, or on the odometer, it had less than 30,000 miles. So it was close to getting to the end of its warranty. And since then, in the last couple years, I have got it from 29,000 miles to almost 60,000 miles. So I've doubled the odometer range on it, put about 30,000 miles in 2 years. I have had no problems. I mean, seriously, it's been an incredible car to me, and there are not enough people talking about it. I think more people should be talking about it, especially now, given that they stopped making the Chevy Volt in early 2019 with the 2019 model year. I'm pretty sure it was February 2019 when they stopped making it. I'm really upset with GM that they stopped making the Chevy Volt. I think it's an incredible car, but I can understand. I understand they have limited resources. They canceled a couple other cars as well, and it sounds like Mary Barra, the CEO, is all in on electric vehicles. It's a shame that right now in 2020 that GM only offers one electric vehicle, and that's the Bolt. And either you like it or you hate it. I mean, the design is really polarizing. Unfortunately, they don't sell any other fully electric cars. But hopefully this will pay off. Hopefully in the next few years, they say by 2025, they're going to have, 20, 30 electric cars. And it seems promising. It seems great. It's just a shame that they canceled such an amazing vehicle, because I think especially in most markets in the United States, in most states, most places, especially for people that live in apartments or people that live in more rural areas or people that do a lot of road trips, the Chevy Volt's an amazing car. So let me talk about 3 good things that I like about the car and a couple bad. So number 1 is if you decide to buy this car, the best thing I think about it is that it will open up your eyes to a whole new world. When I bought this car in 2018, I had never met anyone that had ever even test driven an electric car. So I was really on my own, and I'm not sure what caught my eye or caught my attention first about electric vehicles, because the last car I had was a 97 Toyota. I had that for a while, and then I didn't need to drive for a while, so I sold it, while I was living overseas, and so there's no reason for me to pay attention to vehicles. But if you decide to buy this plug-in hybrid, it's going to expose you to a whole new world out there as far as electric vehicles go. If you're just curious and you are nervous about jumping into electric cars, this is a great start. For me, this car made me a believer. Now I am fully on board with the electric vehicle movement. I'm so excited for what's happening in the US, in Europe, in China, and just around the world with electric vehicles. And that's thanks to the Chevy Volt. Even though it's not a fully electric car, I am all on board on the electric vehicle movement, and I find myself charging every chance I get, even if I only get a few miles. It's just still so much fun to plug in and charge, and I can't stop talking about it, trying to get friends and family to buy electric cars, because I think it's just so awesome. And the great thing is if you're nervous about, plugging in your car, if it's just too out there, too crazy, and you kind of want to dip your toes in, this is a great car, because you can drive it as if it were a full EV if you drive less than 50 miles a day, or you could even drive 100 miles a day. Let's say you live 50 miles away from your work. and they have charging at your work, you could drive 50 miles there, 50 miles back, and never use a drop of gas. That's amazing. But I know for me, having a plug-in hybrid is completely different from a hybrid, and there is absolutely no way that my next car will be a gas car. And I'll even take it a step further. There's no way my next car is going to be a plug-in hybrid. The electric experience on this car is just so amazing, and that's because of the second best thing about this car, and that's its 50 plus mile all electric range, over 50 miles. The only other plug-in hybrid that comes close is, I believe it's the Honda Clarity, and that gets about 48 miles, and that's the only plug-in hybrid that even comes close that you can actually buy today that's being sold. I'm sure, there's a few decent cars out there, like the plug-in Hyundai Ioniq, the plug-in Prius Prime, but a lot of these cars, they only go 20 miles, maybe 30 miles most. The new RAV4 plug-in that's supposed to come out later this year, that's only going to get 39 miles. I mean, that's still pretty impressive considering it's a pretty large vehicle. But what's so amazing about this car, especially when you compare it to, for example, the Nissan Leaf or any of the first generation electric vehicles, is that number one, it's 50 miles, so there's actually a legitimate chance that you could treat this car like a full EV if you wanted to, if you don't drive all that much. And most Americans, at least, don't drive more than 20 or 30 miles a day, from what I understand. And what's so great about this car is that you don't have to worry about battery degradation. It's a 2016, the car I have, so it came out in 2015. It's now 2020, so that car is about 5 years old, driven almost 60,000 miles, and there is no battery degradation whatsoever. I can still, when I plug it in and charge it all the way, I still get more than 50 miles on a good day. And when it's really cold outside, rainy, what have you, driving at freeway speeds, I can still get like 47, 48 miles. That's a full battery. And the reason is two things. They really over-engineered their battery. How did they over-engineer it? Number one, they made it liquid-cooled. The first generation Leafs are air-cooled. As I understand it, they're passive-cooled. So when you're driving, really fast or for a long time, that puts a lot of stress on the battery. And then when you plug in the car to do a fast charge, that also puts stress on the battery. And when you park the car out in the sun and it's sitting in the sun all day, that puts a lot of stress on the battery as well. And so when you see these cars like the first gen Leaf, because there's no active cooling, the battery just kind of starts to die and lose its range. I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, I've heard of the first generation Nissan Leafs losing, like 40% of their range in just a few years. I mean, literally, that's how bad the degradation is on those first gen Leafs. I would love to hear your comments if you've had that same experience, but I've read that a lot. So GM did a great job of not being cheap on the battery. They made it liquid cooled, so your battery's going to last forever, really. And number two is that they built in a little bit of wiggle room on the top end and on the bottom end. So generally with lithium-ion batteries, it's the same with your cell phone or laptop or anything else, is that you want to keep lithium-ion batteries charged between 20 and 80%. It puts a lot more stress on the battery if you keep the battery charged 100% and you just leave it there. And it's also not good to have the battery completely drain and have it sit there anyway. You kind of want to have the middle of your battery used, the middle 80%. They built that in there, so you don't even have to think about that, because when you charge your battery 100%, it doesn't let you charge, even though when you look at it, you think that you charge your battery 100%. There's actually still more battery in the car that you're not using. And that's the 20% wiggle room on the top. And then when you drain the battery and the car switches to gas, there's actually 20% of the battery left over that is still there, but they don't let you have access to that 40% of the battery in order to save the battery's longevity, so it'll last longer, and that's amazing. And if you live in California, and I'm sure other states are the same as well, the battery has an amazing warranty. In California, I believe it's a 10-year, 100,000 or 8-year, 100,000 mile battery warranty, that if it goes below 90% capacity, if it degrades just a little bit, you don't get enough range out of it, they'll replace it for free. And that's amazing. Truly an incredible battery. And when people say that the Chevy Volt battery is over-engineered, I 100% believe it. I think it's totally true. So if you buy this car used, you can have total confidence, whether it has 20,000 miles, 50,000 miles, 70,000 miles, the battery's going to be fine. I mean, talk to the owner, because I'm sure maybe there's, every car is different, but generally the Chevy Volt is extremely reliable, and especially the battery. That brings me to my number 3. Best thing I like about this car is it's an amazing price. So this car has been around since late 2010 with the 2011 model year. They stopped making it with the 2019 model year. And so there's a lot of used cars. You can find a lot of these on the used market. And actually, I was checking just now. If you want a second-gen Volt, which is the 2016 and up, I got the first year of the second gen. The second gen, I was really on the fence because it seemed like the 2015 and the 2016 cars were kind of, around the same ballpark as far as price. I wanted to pay about $15,000 to $20,000 when I first got my car. The big differences between the first and second gen is that you get a little bit more range with the battery. With the first gen, it was like a 38-mile range, and with the Gen 2, you get a 53-mile range, so I figured it was worth paying a little bit so I could drive a little bit more on all-electric. But I'm looking right now on Car Gurus, and I'm looking nationwide for second-gen Volts. And the cheapest one I see right now is a 2017. Oh, that doesn't count. It looks like it was an accident. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this one's also 2017 for $11,000. It has 71,000 miles on the odometer. Let's scroll down a little bit. I mean, there's a 2016 with 40,000 miles on the odometer and it costs $12,000. That's a much cheaper price than I got mine, and it has about the same mileage. You could spend $10,000 to $15,000 and get a really, really, really good Chevy Volt that's going to last you a really long time, and it's going to have a great battery, and it's going to last you well. And because it's been around for a while, because they made so many, you can find a lot on the used market, and they're going to treat you well. Like I said, I bought mine used, and I literally have no complaints. It's an amazing car, absolutely incredible. I like the styling, like the way it looks. I like the color options on it. Every color I've seen on it, looks amazing, and you really can't go wrong getting a used Chevy Volt. So yeah, 3 good things about it is it exposes you to a whole new world. Number 2, the 50-mile EV battery range means you can actually experience all electric life if you wanted to, and it's been around for a while. They've made a lot of them. So there's a lot of great prices on the used market. And I'll end with the one bad thing. My biggest criticism about the car is that the onboard charger, or in other words, its charging speed, its max charging speed when you plug in, is only about 3.6 kilowatts. This is the same speed charger that was around when they first came out with the car in late 2010. I think actually at that time it was like 3.3 kilowatts. Now it's like 3.6. They only upgraded the onboard charger, the charging speed, in the last few months of production. Only with the 2019 model year can you get the 7.2 kilowatt charger, which means instead of plugging in your car to get a full battery in 4 hours, you could actually get it in about 2 hours for 50 miles. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to go on a full-on road trip, stop for 30 minutes, quick charge, and then go. But it does mean that when you go shopping, you can actually get a full battery. Because my car only gets 10 miles per hour, when I go shopping, I shop for an hour. I only get 10 miles, with those free Volta chargers. But if I had a 7.2 kilowatt charger, just 1 hour, I could get 20 miles. That's half a battery, basically. So that's my only criticism. I wish they fixed that earlier on. I understand they were trying to save money, maybe didn't think it was worth it. It kind of, the majority of people that use this, they're just going to plug it every night when they're sleeping at home. If you're sleeping for 8 hours, it doesn't matter if your car charges in 2 hours or 4 hours. It doesn't make that big of a difference. But for me, I love driving electric so much, and I charge while I'm at school or at work or when I'm shopping, that cutting down that charging speed in half would actually make a big difference and mean that I would be able to drive all electric just that much more. But you know what? It is what it is. It's still a great car, an amazing car. I highly recommend it. If you have any questions about the Chevy Volt, please ask. I'd be happy to answer. It's an amazing car, and if you're considering buying it for a used car, either for yourself or somebody else, and you kind of want to expose them to the world of electric vehicle driving, and you don't want to make any big compromises, you don't want to get a Chevy Spark where it only goes 80 or so miles and then you're stranded on the side of the road. You will never get stranded on this car, and you'll still get exposed to the cool world of driving all electric. It's a great car. It's going to last a long time. I've heard of people driving the Gen 1 Volts over 400,000 miles on the odometer and everything working fine. You could check on all the Volt forums. A lot of people have driven this car over 100,000 miles or 200,000 miles and haven't had any real problems. All you have to do is just replace the washer fluid and rotate your tires, basically, and do an oil change every 2 years. That's what they actually recommend, is every 2 years in the manual, and so that's a cool thing too. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to ask. And if you're considering buying a used Chevy Volt, I highly recommend it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you guys next time.